Hello, everyone. I'm Mike, Army veteran, Chief of Staff at YouTube, and Global Leader of Google's Veterans Network, VetNet. Welcome to the Google VetNet Career Week Fireside Chat between Jacquelline Fuller, President of Google.org, and Carolyn Tastad, Group President of North America for Procter Gamble. Over the next hour, we will explore how leaders can adapt to ambiguous and drastic changes, how P&G integrates diversity and equity into its core business to yield positive results, and how veterans and military spouses are embraced in the CPG industry. And now, time for the chat. Over to you, Jacqueline.
All right, well, it's so good to be here. Thank you so much, Mike. I'm Jacquelline Fuller, and I lead Google.org, which is Google's philanthropy. And it's just great to be here at Google's VetNet Career Week. This is personal for me. I am the daughter of a veteran. My dad's active duty military for 20 years. My mother, as a military spouse, moved the family more than 20 times. So I want to say a big welcome to all of the veterans, military spouses, and service members who are listening in from all around the world. So in my role as leading Google.org, one of the things I've been able to do is bring together that experience as an Army brat with Google resources to help drive some meaningful collaborations to serve the veteran community. Just one of them, for example, we paired up with the USO, fabulous organization, to reach out to more than 1,000 veterans to complete an IT certificate, preparing them to join jobs in the tech sector. So today we have a fabulous conversation. I'm here with Carolyn Tastad. She is Group President of North America for Procter Gamble. And Carolyn is responsible for P&G's largest and most profitable region, North America. So Carolyn, welcome. Thank you so much for participating in Google VetNet Career Week. And I've heard you say that California was one of your favorite duty stations with P&G. So in the future, I hope we get to see you in person in Mountain View in our home base. But just to kick off the conversation.
That would be wonderful.
Thanks, Carolyn. So just to kick off our conversation, I'd love to hear about your career path. You earned a college degree in computer science, and you joined P&G in IT, I think, originally. And since then, you've done so many different things in sales, in general management. So just give us some wisdom from your career path. And, you know, if you had to do it again, would you do it the same way?
Well, a great question and always interesting. So I actually studied business in university, as you say, with a major in computer science. But my computer science expertise is pretty far out of date for today's world. So I wouldn't bank too much on that. That was a long time ago. But certainly when I started with P&G, what I didn't expect was to be here 30 plus years later. It's still remarkable to me. And I definitely didn't understand the range of opportunities that I'd be given. I've had the chance to lead many different parts of our business, as you said. You know, some of our big businesses, our smaller niche businesses. I've worked across many different disciplines, IT, logistics, sales. I've done a lot of acquisition integration work, which is pretty heavy on the finance side. And through it all, I've learned so much, and I've had the opportunity to impact our business in a meaningful way, and to be able to do that with a great company with great values that align to how I work and what I believe in. And so I guess I'd tell anyone, veterans who are looking to work in a corporation or new college graduates, anyone looking to make a career change, that your degree, while important, and it feels really vital at the time, certainly doesn't define you or the work that you do. You certainly may start in the field in which you studied, as I did, but at P&G, and I expect in so many other companies, you'll be able to build your career and your skill sets through a variety of experiences. And that's certainly what we're looking to do. You know, our goal is to maximize the impact of each individual. And one of the things I'm so pleased with is that we give our new hires meaningful responsibility on day one, and we invest a lot in training and capability building. We're very intentional about how we do our talent planning to make sure we're planning the right experiences and the opportunity for those expanded responsibilities for every individual. Our goal is really to build strong leaders who can contribute in so many different ways to ensure our long-term success.
Well, thanks, Carolyn. So I know that you talk often about the power of diversity and inclusion, the importance of bringing diversity and inclusion into the heart and the core of the business itself as well. And so in addition to supporting the veteran community, you and I have a shared passion around gender equity. And looking at the stats for P&G, I was so impressed. I see that P&G now has about 50% of your board of directors women, 40% of your top 30 execs, and 48% of your global managers. I mean, that's incredible. Well done you. So what are the lessons that you can extend from what you have learned in the leadership you've applied?
Well, thank you for that. And I think it starts with an aspiration. And our aspiration has always been to create a company and a world where equality is available for everyone, where respect, where inclusion are the cornerstones of our culture, and where every individual, however they define themselves, has the opportunity to learn, grow, succeed, and importantly, thrive. So as you know, if you talk about representation, we have set specific representation goals. And last year, what I'm really proud of is we also started sharing our progress publicly. For anyone listening, it is on our website, available for anyone to see. And we share it at our board, our executive team, all of our management, and all employees, including our plant and distribution center employees. And so the transparency, I think, is so important. Now, we aspire to 50-50 women and men at every level, including our board of directors, as you said. And we also aspire to 40% multicultural representation across all management levels in the US. And so from my perspective on this, target setting, and even more importantly, keeping those targets front and center is an important element of our progress. We talk about our targets all the time across the organization, in town halls, in business reviews, and we make those targets and our progress visible to all across our company and frankly, anyone who wants to visit our website. So how we recruit is important. Retention is obviously equally as important. And we look at our representation at every level, and we hold our leaders accountable to build a winning and a diverse team. So I did say we're intentional about talent management earlier. We put clear assignment plans in place. We want to make sure we have great managers for each of our people. And we're very deliberate in equalizing career advocacy. We know advocacy and sponsorship is really important. We rely on dialogue to build a strong culture, to get to deeper levels of understanding of individuals, and really to set the tone for the behaviors that we want to build within our walls. And we've moved far beyond the more comfortable conversations to conversations that put bias, microaggressions, white privilege, systemic racism, any of those things on the table. And we also look at our policies, our benefits, and our practices through this equality lens. And so, any number of these things they're all connected to help us accelerate the progress. And certainly, like everyone, we've got a lot more to do, but our organization, our leadership are the most diverse in our company history. And our business performance has never been stronger. And as I say, whenever I talk about this, those two things are connected.
Well, that's super impressive. I'm not sure I've heard an executive from a company talk about white privilege so openly when you talk about what all the steps that all of us need to take as we're thinking about how do we make sure our teams are stronger, more diverse. I mean, the research we've done at Google, we know our business runs better. We make better products when our teams across the globe reflect our users. And so as you think about that, and you've done such a good job in terms of reflecting the makeup of society in your leadership and across your teams, how do veterans and military spouses fit into that vision?
Well, it's as you said, right? Equality and inclusion are part of our values, just as you said with Google. It's baked into how we think, and we do exactly as you said. We know there's power in differences, and there's strength in togetherness. And having a workplace that is diverse, where people can really be their true and authentic selves, unlocks potential. It unlocks possibilities. It drives growth. It creates value. It just makes all of us better. So we do want to be inclusive in terms of gender, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, religion, age, even experience, thinking style. We want to recognize intersectionality, the full spectrum of individuals, who they are, how they identify, how they define themselves. And we fundamentally respect that. Now, to your question on the veteran population, it's very diverse, right? Veterans bring incredible skills and experiences to the business world. They've been in combat zones. They've operated under intense pressure. They've led and motivated large teams of people. They're highly adept in solving real world problems, and they are laser focused on achieving their mission. So those skills and experiences, they're relevant. They're totally relevant in business. They're highly relevant at P&G. And we want to continue to build out our population of employees who can lead, who can bust barriers, who take care of people, and who operate with the utmost integrity. And I can't think of a population that fits that better than veterans. And we've had a long history of supporting veterans. It dates back, I guess, well over 150 years. But I did find an interesting stat, excluding our founders, the Procters and the Gambles, who led our company, obviously. We've had 12 CEOs. Jacqueline, take a guess on how many of them have had military service.
Carolyn, how many? How many? Don't make me guess.
Don't make me guess. 6 of them.
20.
6
That's
of them.
Impressive.
50%, which is pretty cool. And so today we've got over 1,500 veterans across 25 sites in the US. 500 of these have been added in the past 5 years. So our recruiting of veterans has massively accelerated, led by somebody who works on my team who just is highly passionate about this work. And our veterans range from entry-level technicians all the way up to our chief information officer who served in the Italian Army.
Nice.
So we've really accelerated our hiring rates, our overall population, and we're excited about that.
All right, so thinking about the veterans in our audience today, so many of them are thinking about transitions and the various stages of career and life journeys. I think, COVID, for example, was a season none of us anticipated. And I think it has led to a lot of us thinking about our longer term plans and what's ahead for us in our life and what do we value and what do we want to do next. So as veterans are thinking about leaving positions, maybe doing transitions, I know in speaking to some of the veterans who have come over to Google, they felt like in a way they've had to start over and relearn so much, leaving military life, entering into the corporate world. So what advice would you give to them based on your own career journey and the successes that you've seen at P&G?
Well, it's such a great comment and a great question. And we definitely don't want anyone to feel that they're starting over, especially since our commitment to all employees is to assign meaningful experiences. And we're very intentional in recruiting veterans because of the skills and experiences they've had. We know they can have an equal impact at P&G. We know those experiences, those skills can be equally applied. So the application may be different, but again, that ability to make an impact is still there. So, I'm going to give you a few examples. I had people pull a couple of profiles of some of our veterans just for the people in the audience, because maybe they can identify with this and just see some real life examples. So Stephanie was an Army transportation officer for 6 years. She joined P&G in our purchasing group. She was responsible for buying transportation to get our products from point A to point B, which in today's world and external marketplace is incredibly challenging. Now, after 4 years doing that, she moved to our analytics and insights team, where she's worked for the last 8 years on some of our largest brands like Always and Pampers, and with some of our largest retail partners like Kroger, national grocery chain. So here's a situation where she's come in one organization, had really great, meaningful, big responsibility, and continued to move into other areas of interest and continue to build her skill set and build her impact. So a really broad range of impacts and the ability to make a difference. Mark was an officer in the Navy. Mark spent 6 years in the Navy as an engineer. When he left the Navy, he joined a consulting firm and eventually came to work at P&G in brand management. That's where we work to put together our brands. We develop what our brands stand for, what their equity is, all of the products and packaging around it. Today, he's been with P&G 17 years. He's a leading brand builder for 2 iconic brands in North America. He leads the brand building for Pampers and for Love's. So Mark is doing an incredible job, and with, again, big impact. And a third example, Vasante was an Army Ranger. He spent a total of 7 years in the Army. And when he left the Army, he got his MBA. While there, he interned at P&G. And 5 years later, he is now leading our finance organization at one of our US paper manufacturing sites in California, a critical site, high technology, high impact, really important part of our paper business. So 3 different examples, very different experiences, but tremendous impact and the ability to make a difference.
I love those stories. The personal stories just really make it come to light. And I think one of them you said went from Navy engineers to Pampers brand. I mean,
Exactly.
that is not something that maybe he woke up one day thinking, this is going to be my career path, right? But for so many of us, life is a zigzag, and we take those essential skills and pivot and apply them. Well, so, on that theme, thinking about P&G again and areas of your core business and how you are also stepping up and helping in so many ways beyond even the veterans on your teams. You're one of the biggest advertisers in the world. You have a huge, huge brand, huge voice. And so how do you think about using that brand and that voice to help counter some of the bias that members of the military community, military spouses might experience?
Well, you're absolutely right. Advertising is certainly really important to P&G. We're one of the world's largest advertisers, and we feel a responsibility to use our films to shine a light on bias, to spark conversations, because we recognize that advertising shapes how people see the world, right? It shapes how people see themselves. And so if we can provide an insight, if we can spark a conversation, in doing that, we have the opportunity to change mindset, and we take that really seriously. And our brand teams are excited about their opportunity to influence that. Our brands have a big voice, right? People trust them. They have tremendous reach. Our brand messages reach millions and millions of consumers, and the people behind the brands, like Mark, as we talked about, they're passionate about making a difference, and they want to do that in a way that's truly authentic to the brand. That's when it really adds meaning. If it's not authentic and if it feels like a something that's been bolted on, it doesn't feel as true. It doesn't feel as real, and it doesn't. It feels a little artificial or commercially driven, perhaps. So let me share a couple of examples. We had, again, because as you say, Jacqueline, the stories make a difference. We had a couple of years ago, the scientists that worked on our Olay brand reminded our team that Olay has always stood for 2 things: women and science. The science in one of our little red jars is phenomenal. The impact it has on skin, amazing. And so our Olay scientists, women, embraced this with the brand team as the heart of the brand, and they chose to speak out and take a stand to accelerate women in STEM, which makes sense. If you've got women scientists, you're about women, you're about science. You can take an authentic position. You can stand up for accelerating women in STEM, and it has credibility. Today women make up only about 24% of STEM careers in the U.S., despite being half the population. So Olay declared an aspiration to double the number of women and triple the number of multicultural women in STEM. And in our campaigns, we feature our Olay women scientists. So it's beautiful. And another example comes from our home care business. These are brands like Swiffer, Dawn, Mr. Clean. And we learned that 65% of chores in most homes are done by one person, which is most often the woman in the household.
Let's guess who that is.
Yeah, let's guess who that is. The disproportionate unpaid work and the burden of that carried by women in the homes. And we've always been committed to equality in the home, always. So these brands launched a campaign to encourage all family members to take on household chores together. It's called Come Clean to Close the Chore Gap. You can actually Google it, and I hope you enjoy watching it. But those are just a couple of examples where if it fits with the brand and what the brand's mission is, and you can find an insight and a way to really speak to that insight, stand up for that insight, you can really use your voice to accelerate equality. And that's what our aspiration is.
I love those stories, and I am absolutely going to go Google that campaign around sharing the chores. That's amazing. I think another example of this that I love that P&G has done is you named an Army combat veteran and Paralympian, Melissa Stockwell, as a recipient of your Athletes for Good Fund. This is ahead of the Tokyo Olympics. Tell us about Melissa and the story there and why that's so powerful.
Well, let me first say that we are really honored to be working with Melissa as part of our Athletes for Good Fund, which we created in partnership with the International Olympic Committee and the International Paralympic Committee. And we've been partnering with both of those organizations for many, many years now. And this fund celebrates and supports the work of Olympic and Paralympic athletes and hopefuls who are partnering with charitable causes to help others and serve their communities in the area of community impact, equality and inclusion, and environmental sustainability. And so far, we've announced 52 recipients of grants from the fund, representing 20 countries, 25 sports, including Melissa Stockwell, who is a para-triathlete. Now, Melissa founded Dare to Try to help people with disabilities train for and compete in triathlons, having experienced firsthand that she could still have a thriving, active life with her disability. She wanted to help other para-athletes have that same realization. And so Dare to Try, her organization, provides encouragement, support for para-athletes, and it's really focused on removing those barriers that prevent people with disabilities from participating in sports or in athletics of any kind. So that could include helping them get access to adaptive equipment or get access to coaching who can help them understand how they can maximize their performance given their disability. So just a really incredible organization with an incredible athlete and individual behind it. And I will say also that Melissa is also a spokesperson for our Start Strong, Stay Strong campaign, which we have in partnership with Operation Homefront. And this is designed, as I'm sure many of you know, to bring the much needed attention to the challenges military families face throughout their service to our country and to provide ways for donors and partners to support them. So we've donated more than $6 million in cash and in-kind donations to the military community over the past 5 years, again, partnering with Operation Homefront, also Fisher House in the USO. So again, back to Melissa, an amazing individual, and we're working with her in a couple of ways.
So we've talked a little bit about how P&G is thinking about bias and the stories that you tell and the communications campaign, the brand campaigns and outreach, which I think is, quite industry leading. But why don't we talk a little bit about internally at P&G and just thinking about, what are the steps that you all are taking in terms of building employee resource groups that help with inclusion, that help with community internally?
Well, to your point, employee resource groups, the culture we have, the organization, the way we come together, all of these are really important. And so let me speak at it perhaps from a veterans perspective. So our Veterans Network has over, I said, 1,500 employees across 25 sites. They come from all branches of military service. They're in critical roles, as we've already established, across all parts of our business. And we work really hard to support them, developing each of them and growing their impact, just as we do to support all of our employees. Now, specific to veterans, we have a number of programs that we think are differentiators for P&G, but as I explained them for veterans, we have them for many of our employee resource groups. Specific to veterans, we do have an onboarding and a training program, which is really designed very specifically to enable a smooth transition from military service to P&G. And that's a very specific program we put together, we feel really good about, and has had really great reaction and feedback from our veterans as they come on board to the company. We have a veterans mentoring program. We have mentoring programs broadly within the company. And we're very intentional about that. I have a number of mentees that I work very hard to be disciplined in making sure I'm connecting with them, making sure I'm offering them the support that they need, the perspective that they need, and that I'm being available to them, for them, because it's really in service to them and making sure we can maximize their impact. We have strong HR policies in place to support our employees who still serve, and obviously to support our employees inside P&G. And then we also invest, to a conversation we almost got into earlier when you talked about white privilege. We invest in opportunities to educate all of our leaders about all parts of diversity, about equality. We invest to educate them about veterans, their experience, the value that they bring to P&G,
Right.
and that ability to have that dialogue to learn. I often say that dialogue builds empathy, and empathy builds action. And we've got to get to the action. We've got to get to the end game, but you've got to get there through understanding. And dialogue really is a very important part of that. We're really proud that P&G has earned a lot of external recognition for our work with veterans. In fact, Forbes recently ranked P&G as the #3 employer for veterans in the US. We were really proud of that. I think we're the only consumer packaged goods company potentially on the list. So veterans are an important part of our employee base. They make a huge contribution to our business. And as we were talking earlier, we want to hire more, which is why I'm so excited to be part of this event today.
Recruit away, recruit away.
Recruit away. There we go.
I think one of the things that all of us can learn from the veteran community is, you look at veterans and think about their military spouses, families. They have had to adapt in so many different quickly changing environments. They've had to move frequently. Maybe they've been deployed. Maybe they're in a foreign country. They need to learn how to very quickly adapt to a rapidly changing environment. I mean, I can't think of a set of skills that is more important for all of us, especially as we think back over this last year with COVID. And it's still rampaging globally. And so thinking about those transferable skills that, they've brought, we have a lot to learn from veterans. But, the broader question I'd just love to ask you is, as a company, how has P&G thought about responding to the COVID crisis globally? I mean, how have you thought about that as a business? How have you thought about that with your employees? And looking ahead, how are you thinking about that with our return to office and this movement that we've had to developing more flexible and personalized work areas?
Well, to your point, what a year, right? And now we have to say it's been almost 18 months. So being in the global pandemic, that was new for all of us, and we all had to make decisions with urgency, operate in unprecedented conditions. And you're so correct. Having the ability to adapt quickly to what was happening was really important. And certainly veterans are really good at that. From a P&G side, we focused on 3 key priorities. And frankly, those 3 key priorities continue to guide our daily work today. Number 1 priority was keeping our people safe. How do we figure out what the new safety protocols are? How do we ensure that in our manufacturing sites, in our distribution sites, we were getting those protocols in place? We were making sure our people were safe, and we were managing that and continue to manage that as the top priority. The second priority for us was maximizing the availability of our products to consumers and customers. Many of our products are in the health, hygiene, and cleaning space. We have a portfolio of products that are daily use products. They're daily use products, and we pride ourselves on the fact that for our products, our whole strategy is that we want to make products where the product performance drives. We want to be in categories where the product performance drives the brand choice. So if I can deliver a product proposition that drives the best performance, I will be the choice for consumers. Within the health, hygiene, and cleaning space, because we have these great leading brands, many of our products were in very, very high demand.
Very high demand.
We make Charmin and Bounty, and I had more calls about people jockeying for more and more Charmin than I have
Were your
ever
friends
had
and
in my
cousins
entire
hoping
time.
you could be their secret supplier and help them out?
Phenomenal, just phenomenal. So maximizing that availability of products was so important. That was the second priority. And third priority, which is part of who we are as a company, was about supporting the communities where we live, including frontline workers and those communities and populations that had been disproportionately affected. And that also remains a priority. And so those 3 things were important. They really reflect who we are as a company, and they guided every day all of our work. And we were doing that in many cases virtually. And so connecting on collaboration on Teams, on all of these other tools from a virtual collaboration, was having those priorities critically front and center was important. And I guess as I think about the last 18 months, those are the things that stand out in terms of my personal learning, right? The importance of those priorities. I always say that nothing cuts through complexity like clarity. Clarity can simplify. So having clear direction, clear priorities, and frankly, even clear feedback for our teams, I do think that's the role of leadership. And that was so important as I reflect on the last 18 months. I think the second one, Jacqueline, you really said it, agility, right? Agility is critically important in times of disruption or uncertainty. And we had to find new ways to make decisions, new ways to get work done. Again, aside from our manufacturing and our distribution center employees, we had an organization that was largely working remote. And again, under circumstances that we hadn't previously encountered. So that was, agility was important. And then collaboration, how do we work together to solve problems? And this is where I think our culture really helped. We've always had a strong culture of collaboration, of breaking down silos. There is nobody better in a crisis than a P&G team, and our teams have collaborated better than ever during this time. It's really what we look for and what we expect from our employees, that ability to adapt with speed, to get work done, and importantly, not just during a crisis. And I would say that's what veterans and their spouses have. They have those characteristics in spades. So I guess to the second part of your question, you asked about flexibility. So certainly another thing the pandemic reinforced and advanced was our thinking on flexibility. We're a global company. We have different time zones, we have different customs, different work days, different holidays. So flexibility has always been important. And like many companies, we've had flexible policies with flexibility on hours and where do you work and things like that. But it absolutely moved to a completely new level this past year. I like to say that we've learned that all employees, from new hires to CEOs, can successfully lead, influence, and progress work virtually. And we've all had the team meetings where children, pets, or partners make cameo appearances. So we've found so many different ways to demonstrate that flexibility and flexible work works. And it's going to be important for us to hold on to that. At the same time, we know there's no substitute for the spontaneous development, collaboration, the innovation that happens when we're physically together in a workplace. And so as we look forward, we really believe our business and our culture is going to benefit from some sort of dynamic balance of both of these, a hybrid model that will serve our business, that will build our culture, and will continue to offer flexibility for our employees. But again, probably in ways that we hadn't even imagined or considered before.
That sounds right about on par with the year and a half we've had. All right, Carolyn, well, thanks so much. We're going to turn now to audience questions. So sure. I think, okay, great. We've got our first one on our Dory. So let me just read it out here. So question from Sharon. P&G has a lot of great brands and products lines. What's a bigger factor in achieving success at a place like P&G? A passion for the specific function or role, or for the industry, or a combination of the two?
That's such a great question. And we're evolving as we go through this. So one of the things that's important to us is, I like to talk to people from a career development standpoint as the importance of depth and the importance of breadth. And so I would look at it not uniquely from a discipline standpoint, or not uniquely from a category or brand standpoint, but this combination of depth and breadth. One of the things that we really value is an individual's ability to cycle their own results, to take a business even further, to continue to grow that business year over year over year, versus just having 1 year and then moving on. And maybe there were unique circumstances that contributed to the results. But that ability to sustain results, the ability to deliver long-term results, the ability to do it over and over and over again, that's the depth that we value. And then we also value the breadth. People who have the opportunity to just push their comfort zone a little bit, build their skill set across different disciplines, across different geographies, across different businesses, different business models. And so we look for that. We look for both of those things. We are moving and have moved to a skills-based career development path. So we're looking at how we put unique skills together. What are the skills required to have the biggest impact in the work that you're doing today? And what skills are going to be important for you to continue to expand your responsibilities? And so we're trying to look at it from a skills perspective versus a discipline or a product category perspective, because we think that gives us flexibility to continue to drive those results.
Okay, we have a next one from David. There was a wonderful CPG panel hosted yesterday, and I was impressed with what P&G is doing for veterans. In your efforts to hire vets, is there a specific value or attribute they possess that you see leading to success at P&G?
I think it's all the things that we talked, right? It's the agility, it's the ability to manage teams, it's the high levels of integrity, it's the focus on delivering the mission, the ability to pivot, the agility to adjust to change. All of these things we've talked about are equally relevant in business. And so veterans have those qualities, those skills, those experiences that every time we see it time and time again with the veterans who join P&G. They excel, they continue to expand their responsibilities, they continue to advance within the company, and the work they do has huge impact.
I think one of the things I've appreciated working alongside some of our veteran Googlers is also just who they are and who they show up to be in a moment of crisis.
Absolutely.
And level-headed,
selfless,
deep wisdom, an ability to take the moment and enter it with a kind of perspective. I think that's super helpful.
Really well said.
Okay. From LaRue, I can't imagine how quickly you've had to adapt to the toilet paper rush of COVID. Amen. We talked about that. You had your cousins reaching out as the supplier. So how did you effectively balance meeting the needs of the market with adhering to safety and quarantining protocols?
Yeah, well, honestly, it goes right back to those key priorities. Our first priority, and with no compromise, was keep our people safe. Everything was about keeping our people safe. So get the safety protocols in place, establish the distancing. We had mask production lines up and running within a few weeks. We had temperature checks up and running. It went from manual to automated scanners. I mean, all of those things we just continued to iterate and make better and better and better so that we could go faster and faster and faster. And with so many of our products, we hit just a massive consumption spike, massive spike. Our paper business grew 80% in the month of March last year, 80%. And this is a brand that has, I'll use consumer packaged goods vernacular, it has 100% penetration, household penetration. So everybody uses it every day. Everybody has it in their house. So you don't usually see 80% spikes of these kind of things. So these kind of spikes, because everybody hoarded, everybody figured out what they needed in their basement. Every time people saw it in different places. I remember asking my husband after he came back from getting groceries, and I said, did you find Charmin? And he said, yes, there was some there. I said, did you buy it? He said, Kara, don't be those people. You keep telling me, don't be those people. We have some, we're okay. So you just get on this path. So it was really about maximizing throughput for all of our brands, making sure that we could maximize our production lines. Anybody in the veteran group who's been in logistics understands that a narrower assortment helps you go faster. It helps you get more through. So we cut our assortment, as many manufacturers did, and we narrowed that assortment to focus on those SKUs that were really, really important. That helped us get more throughput. We had to then get it through our distribution centers. We had to work with our customers. We had to manage supply, and from an allocation standpoint, we had to allocate product for more than a year. So we had to limit product that people could buy that our customers could buy for more than a year. So all of those things, and again, our teams, our people have been just ultimate heroes. I mean, the work that they've done, their ability to find, again, this is what veterans do, their ability to find a way to get just a little bit more out, to run just a little bit faster, to run just a little bit more efficient. was just superb. I mean, the people of P&G have just done heroic work this last year.
Okay, next story from Aaron. After hearing the CPG panel yesterday, I'm interested in the space. Great, Aaron. So what's your advice for service members who are 1 year away from leaving service? What can we read, train on, get educated on in order to be a viable candidate for a CPG company?
It's a great question. And the only thing I'd reinforce is you have all the experiences. You're not missing anything. So start there. Start from what are the things that you have had experiences? What are the kind of experiences where you feel, what are the conditions around those experiences where you feel that you excelled? How can you try to codify what those are? Because then in conversation with a P&G, with others, you can say, these are the conditions that I want to lead a big organization, or I like being at the tip of the spear working on issues and solving problems, or I like being way out in front trying to anticipate what's happening. Look at your own set of experiences and work to identify and determine those things that are really going to get you fired up, where you feel like you can contribute at your best, and codify that for yourself. And so if you want to do something, start there, because you're not missing anything. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to go train. You have everything we're going to need. Just try to determine for you what has to be true in order for you to continue to excel and bring your full self and your full potential to the work every day.
Okay. I think we just did this question. Do we have the next one? All right, does P&G have remote job opportunities for non-tech jobs? I think this question around what do you have available remote is going to be a big one for all of us.
I think it is, and we're still working through that. So we certainly have we have sites in many different places. So I'll start there. There's many different locations. We have we certainly have some sites where we do need people to be close and on the ground, right? Whether that's in a manufacturing site, whether that's in a distribution center, but also as you think about the customers and our retailers. If you're going to work with Kroger or Walmart or Target or Amazon, any of these places, being close to their campus, being close to be able to have a conversation with them, even recognizing we're going to be in a hybrid world, some of that becomes really important. And then we're trying to figure out this balance, as I said, we know it'll be a hybrid model, it'll be flexibility, but we also recognize the value of being in an organization where you can come together, your team can come together, you can build that culture. It helps you shortcut the questions and get to those answers. It helps you know intuitively which way you're going to behave and which way you're going to pivot. So it's really that combination. And we have some jobs that are, we call them location free, 100% location free, because they may be working independently. But I will say that's a smaller set of jobs, and the majority of ours will be a hybrid based on one of our key locations.
From Lisa, COVID seemingly changed the employment landscape. Since military spouses must move every 2 to 3 years, how is P&G balancing the desire for in-person collaboration and teamwork with the ability to work remote with new technology? So similar to the question you just answered, but I think maybe anything in particular for military spouses and others who are in the position of needing to move often.
Yeah, there's a couple of things we're trying to figure out, and we continue to learn and we continue to evolve our policies and practices as we do that. So we've learned so much more about how we can collaborate virtually, and so we don't tend to move people every 2 to 3 years. But every now and then there will be an opportunity for somebody to have an assignment for 2 years with the end goal of being back in that same location. For those different things, we are offering much more flexibility. Frankly, we always have, because we may say, hey, it's easier to commute there for a couple of years. Don't move your home and family. Do a little bit back and forth. Now we're in a hybrid world. Get there every X number of times per month. So we're working through all of those different types of job constructs. And again, everything will be hybrid. Everything is going to be based on what the conditions of that individual are, what the individual role is, and really what the mission around that work is at that time. So I think it is very similar to previous, but again, we consider, we don't have rules, right? We have guidelines, and we really work to understand what's the best way for an individual to have impact in this specific work. And we do it very individually based.
Right. Marielle, I admire P&G's dedication to closing the female representation gap within leadership roles. What have you found to be the most effective tool or plan or initiative in not just hiring female talent, but also retaining it? Would love to hear your retention strategy for women and people of color, and let's hear about it for women of color in particular.
Yeah, very great question. I tend to use 3 words that I always go back to, on any time I talk about how we made progress and what does that look like. It starts with intentionality. Intentionality is so important. And we have to think about intentional recruiting, intentional career pathing. We have to think about intentional policies and benefits, everything through an equality lens, including the intersectionality, including race, including ethnicity, including, the intersection of women of color, and gender and race. And so all of these things are important, but intentionality is so important. Without hope doesn't work, right? No plans don't work. You have to have intention, and you've got to be able to drive that plan. The second word I use is accountability, because that, with intentionality and accountability together, can make magical things happen. But without the accountability, then there's the potential that a plan never gets activated. And so accountability is the second thing that's important. Accountability to targets, accountability to recognize and remove barriers that might be in the way, accountability to building an inclusive culture. We hold our leaders accountable. We hold them accountable to the behaviors in their organization, the cultures that they deliver, the targets that we set for them. And that combination of intention and accountability is really how we have made the progress that we have made. And both of those rely on leadership. So that's the third word, right? Without leadership that sets the tone right from the top of the organization all the way down, leadership throughout the organization, so you don't have that, the middle that gets stuck, all of that is really critically important. But those are the things that we count on and that we keep front and center as we do this work.
All right, next question. P&G is a global company. Can vets apply to work overseas after transitioning, and are there any restrictions?
No. Yes and no. Yes, vets can apply. I mean, we have a global employee base. We tend to look at that. There are no restrictions. We have talent that starts in one part of the world and ends up in another part of the world, and that happens all the time. I started my career in Canada. I'm Canadian. I went to school in Canada. I started at P&G in Canada. I moved to different places in the U.S. We moved to Switzerland. My kids spent most of their school years in Switzerland. My oldest graduated from high school there, and then my youngest did her high school back here in Cincinnati. So many different places, many different experiences, just like so many of the veterans. Many of you have moved many more times than I have. And we have people, I encounter people that I've worked with in all these different places every day. So we have a lot of movement. It's really about making sure that you are clear on what you want to do and when you want to do that and how do we do that. And we really work we really pride ourselves on having career conversations that are really about possibilities. How do we create those possibilities? And that starts with the individual knowing what they aspire and what they want to do from a personal standpoint and what choices that they're willing to make for that.
I also had a season of my career where we moved internationally, and we lived and worked in India. And I look back in that chapter and so grateful, not just from a career progression standpoint, but what a wonderful time for our family. Our kids were about 8 and 10 at the time. And so I think that those international postings and the ability to work for a multinational company and to be in a variety of different geographies is so beneficial, not only for the company, for the individual as well. So I think we have time.
Without question. My kids, when we were in Geneva, they both were at a school that was affiliated with the UN, and the UN, perhaps like the military, every two years there was a rotation. They have friends all over the world. They became global citizens. It shaped how they think. A phenomenal experience.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have time for just another couple questions before we need to close. All right, from Kareem. There's been some great advice this week about how to highlight skills in an interview. There's also been conversation about the value or lack of value in the MBA versus certifications or microlearning. So how could someone without those credentials get into the interview chair? That's a great question. I think a lot of people are asking that question.
It's a great question. I think what's really important as you think about who you are and what you are as an individual is thinking about what you can contribute. And I think it always comes down to you being able to present yourself, your skills, your experiences in a very authentic way. What never works is trying to put on something that isn't real and isn't you. So I would say versus is it skills, is it experience, is it something else, is it the MBA, is it the micro skills? How do I get in the interview share? Get really clear on what your impact has been. Get really clear on, if I say that from a P&G side, what your impact has been, how you lead, examples where you've really made a personal impact, where that impact is obvious in how you tell your story. And so I would focus on that. We value the experiences, we value the results, we value that as a primary recruiting tool versus a list of skills or badges or certifications.
Okay. All right. Do we have more questions on the? All right. Okay. Endless stream of questions.
That's amazing.
So what's the importance of networking and networking authentically? How has the pandemic impacted this process? We get a lot of questions about the importance of networking because you hear so often that we need to do it. And honestly, for so many people, it's just painful.
Yeah.
So what does effective networking look like? And how can people, maybe even those who are introverts, partake? And how can all of us do it in a virtual environment?
Fascinating. And I'm, I got to put my hand up as the introvert who hates networking. So I probably am absolutely the wrong person to ask this question of. So I'm going to answer it from a P&G lens. The reason I say intentional talent planning and intentionality is that I don't want to rely on only those who network to the front of the line when I'm trying to find the very best talent for our company. So I understand that happens, and share of voice can make a difference for people. But we work so hard to make sure that we're looking at the full range of candidates, the full set of experiences, the impact people have had, and it's not about style, and it's not about voice, and it's not about being at the front of the line. And so I will say that as a starting point, as perhaps the disclaimer for everything else. The second thing that I would say is I talked about equality in career advocacy. One of the things that does count at P&G is advocacy and is sponsorship. We are a company of people who have been with the company for many, many years, and we all know each other. And so this advocacy counts, right? It's, have you worked with so-and-so? Yes. Oh my gosh, they're amazing, and it's these informal hallway conversations that really, they make a difference. And so the other thing we're intentional about is equality in career advocacy. How do we ensure that our people of color have the appropriate sponsorship and advocacy? How do we ensure that people with disabilities have that same sponsorship and advocacy? So those are the things that we're doing to avoid overly reliant on somebody who can network better than the other person. And then for the people, yes, networking is important. Yes, it's important to have conversations. It's important to get exposure, to get experiences. And I still think it comes down to you as an individual and what you can bring, and you being authentic in how you convey that.
Yeah. All right. I think probably last question. So from Michelle, the talk's been amazing. Thanks to both. I'm assuming that some of the attendees like me are leaving the military roles where they're leading dozens of people. How do we ensure that the leveling or seniority of the role we're applying for matches our experience and skill sets? Okay, very pragmatic question for us to end on.
Yeah, great question. And we've been doing work like this. This is again about the impact that you have, really ensuring that you convey what that is. We hire people at all different levels of the company. There's not just one way in. And so we hire experienced hires, people who have all of these experiences. Veterans are all experienced hires. You all come with a set of experiences. We are not going to put you in the same group as a college grad who hasn't had those experiences. So I would say, as you do that, ask the company about how they hire for experience. You can use that as an opening question to try to tee it up that says, how do you value my experiences? How do you think about that relative to where I would come into the organization and how I would progress? And many, many companies hire experience and get tremendous value out of it. Certainly we do.
Well, that just shows that Michelle's, I think, ahead of the game, already thinking about leveling, already thinking about how do I make sure I protect my legacy and everything that I've done and bring all of those skills and get recognized for them. Well, Carolyn, unfortunately, we are now out of time, but I want to thank you so much. Thanks for giving us your time. You're such an amazing leader, so very well known, and it's been an honor to host you here in this fireside chat. So thank you so much. The stories, the data, the inspiration, the pragmatic tips for veterans, for military spouses, for other leaders and other businesses to make the kind of progress that you have. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacqueline. It's been a pleasure. Time has gone so fast, we could keep talking for...
It zipped by, didn't it?
But thank you so much. It's been a joy.
Well, thanks, Carolyn. And let me say to all of our viewers now, so please stay tuned. We're going to have another executive fireside chat coming up. This is with one of my good friends, our Chief Diversity Officer, Melanie Parker, and the VP of Uber Freight, Lior Ron. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And we hope that you join in the following conversations. Thanks again to Carolyn. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.